Before we get into the episode, I am thrilled to announce that the EntreMD Business School is open for enrollment. The EntreMD Business School is the only school of its kind for physicians who want to build 6, 7, and multiple 7-figure businesses. Over the last 2 years, we have had hundreds of doctors go through the school with unbelievable results. Some of them run brands, some of them run private practices, some of them are coaches, some have other kinds of service-based businesses or product-based businesses. And we've had people come in and cross the 6-figure milestone, cross the 7-figure milestone, cross the multiple 7-figure milestone. You will be in a place where you'll get the coaching, the community, the accountability that you need to thrive as an entrepreneur, especially in the times that we're in. So maybe you've been following me for a while. Maybe you've been getting so much out of the EntreMD podcast and you've been wondering, how can I work with Dr. Una and the community more? Well, this is your chance. Come join us in the EntreMD Business School. It is application only. So go to entremd.com/business to turn in your application. I cannot tell you how many doctors have made statements like this. I recovered my investment in the first week. I recovered my investment in my bank account in the first 90 days. This is the best investment I've made in myself ever. I want you to have that kind of story, not just a story of building a great business that serves a lot and earns a lot, but having a business that gives you the freedom to live life on your terms. So don't wait any longer. entremd.com/business. And now for the episode. Hi docs, welcome to the EntreMD Podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you embrace entrepreneurship so you can have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on your terms. I'm your host, Dr. Una. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the EntreMD Podcast. Today, I am so excited, which you're probably like, Dr. Una, you're always excited, but super, super excited for the special guest we have. And as you notice, I don't spend a lot of time reading the whole big bio for my guests, but for this one, we just have to, okay? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our guest, Dr. Adaeze Oreh. She is a consultant family physician with the Department of Hospital Services in the Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria. She has over 16 years of experience in the healthcare service delivery and health systems management across the private and public health sectors in Nigeria. She's also the Senior Health Policy Advisor with the Ministry of Health, and she's the founder of Kaibeya, she'll correct me if I got it wrong, Care Foundation, and they provide medical and educational support to underserved communities in northern Nigeria. She was recently selected as one of the 24 recipients of the Aspen New Voices Fellowship for 2019 by the Aspen Institute. This is an initiative sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to recognize change makers in global health and development. She sits on the governing council of Nigeria's first private medical school, which is so exciting. And she's spoken on 31 stages and get this, 10 different countries. All right. So she is the embodiment of an entrepreneur, entrepreneur extraordinaire. And she's like rolling her eyes at me, but it's okay. So I am so excited to welcome to the EntreMD Podcast, Dr. Adaeze Oreh. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome, welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. Even though I quarreled with you for inviting me on this stage, I mean, I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur, but well, you did a somewhat good job of convincing me. So you still have some work to do though.
Well, thank you. I'm up for the challenge. I can take it. But I'm happy you're here. And yes, you are an entrepreneur and, people see how that works. But now the part I left out is that we were classmates in medical school. We were classmates in high school and what we considered middle school here. And at one point we were neighbors as well.
Yeah.
So we go way, 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 way back, like so far back.
And we were co-publishers of a magazine, remember?
Oh my goodness, I forgot about that. Yes, we were. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. Okay. Yeah, we're co-publishers of a magazine. So just so you guys know, I'm a distinguished author. Thank you. So now we didn't have too much of a conversation about what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to be learning as much as my listeners are. So I'm going to start off with, I remember you from high school, from medical school, and I have to ask the question, how did you become this person? What's the story behind this, right? Because the usual transition is I become a doctor, I get a job, and we're good. So what prompted all of this other stuff you're doing literally on a global scale?
Well, for me, I don't think the transition was quite so drastic because, medical school, I went through so many specialties that I wanted to do. I went through cardiology. I had my surgery moments. And then right around when we were finishing, I think because we had encountered so many patients who couldn't afford medical care and things like that. So I knew that there was this whole world to medicine that I wanted to explore. And I knew for certain that I wanted to work not just with medics, I also wanted to work with people in other sectors. So education, agriculture, development, other areas. So that was one thing that I was certain by the time I was finishing med school. And then I kind of backslid. So during the year of internship, I had this fantastic radiologist who I used to work with. As an intern, you're the one going for the results and everything. And we developed this close relationship. And I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to sit in a room and I want to go over x-rays and CT scans. And that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. But then life happens. And so kind of like a downer, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in the first 2 years after graduating from med school. So I was a young mother, a new wife, and I had this huge diagnosis thrown my way. So definitely, I knew I was still going to practice medicine because I just had this strong faith and belief I was going to get through it. But definitely radiology wasn't what I was going to then do with that history. And so I went back to my passion for health equity, wanting equal access for health coverage and for populations that didn't have access. So poor populations, rural populations. And so I then went and did a master's in health management at Imperial College in the UK. Came back to Nigeria because I was certain, look, I'm going back to Nigeria. I want to contribute to my country. So came back to Nigeria and then applied to the Ministry of Health because that's where I wanted to work. And I was told there was no space, there was no availability. And this is me with my 100-on game pitch, and I'm being told that there was no availability. So the next thing I could do was to volunteer. So I volunteered with the ministry for about 7 months.
You volunteered for 7 months?
Yes, I volunteered for 7 months with the Ministry of Health. And I was rotating from department to department. So I kind of knew everybody in the department. And so I was networking as a volunteer. And one day I was in an office and I heard there was an opportunity coming up in one of the departments that I had done some volunteering about 2 months before that. So I headed down there for the interview and I was interviewing for a particular position and then I was offered a more senior position, which kind of blindsided me because I was like, hey guys, I hope there's no mix up. This is what I applied for. So yes, so that's then started my career. I was then offered the opportunity to run a joint project between Nigeria's Ministry of Health and the United States President's Emergency Fund for AIDS Relief. So I did that for 5 years, coordinating blood services in the capital, Abuja, and in a couple of other northern states as well. So there I was doing a lot of community work, community service, and I wanted to get back into patient care. And so in between that, I then started my family medicine training.
So you had the Ministry of Health job going on, which I can imagine is super busy, right?
Yeah.
And then your wife, and then you have the kids. And then you're like, you know what? I'm just going to go do a residency program. What were you thinking? Where's the work-life balance? What are you doing?
No. So, well, for one thing, I have huge, incredible support from my husband and my children. So knowing that they have my back is something that, you can't quantify. So
Yeah.
I've been able to do so much because I have their support. And I've also had very supportive superiors who have worked as mentors, who have worked as champions. So have helped me prioritize things, put things in focus, and get as much done as possible.
Awesome.
Yeah. So why I mentioned the community works is the fact that way I was able to see up close the challenges many people face because of, say, where they live, where they come from, their levels on the socioeconomic ladder, and gender. So these are things that I was addressing in my day-to-day.
Yeah.
And there were things I was passionate about. And so I was speaking about these things locally. And in fact, when I was nominated for the Aspen New Voices Fellowship, it was actually someone who had worked with me on one of the community projects that nominated me without my knowing. It was when I was down written that I had been nominated by this person. That's when I knew, who nominated me. So from talking about things that I was passionate about at a local level, I was then somehow given the opportunity to talk internationally, because the Aspen New Voices is also an incredible platform for international engagement on socially relevant issues. So that's why I feel like the transition wasn't really drastic, because there wasn't a departure from what I was already doing. It was just that my voice was now amplified. And I was then invited to more and more places to speak on the work that I was doing.
So let me ask you about this, right? Now, based on what you're saying, I take it that you are a networking champion?
I would say I'm a networking champion. I'm a networking student.
Fine, I'll take it.
I'm a student of networking.
So as a senior student of networking, tell us some of the things that you would tell somebody who is starting off. Maybe they're in a job, or maybe they're even in a ministry job, or, health policy, any of those kind of things. And maybe they're big introverts and they're like, yeah, networking is not really my thing. So I go to events and I hide at the back and I make sure I get the great content, but I'm not really connecting with people. What would you tell them? Like at this point, how much of your success would you attribute to being in the right rooms with the right people, making connections and stuff like that?
I would say 100%. Networking is responsible for 100%, because
100%.
No matter, because no matter how competent you are, people have got to know that you're competent. And they can't know if you're just sitting in a room and doing your amazing work. So if there's nobody seeing the work that you do, nobody hearing about it, nobody talking about it, then you'll just be there as this competent expert who nobody knows. So
the world's best kept secret.
Yes, exactly. The world's best kept secret. So the thing is, first of all, I would say I'm a shy person.
To which I roll my eyes, but yes, okay.
Unroll those eyes, please. So I would say I'm a shy person. I've never been one of those people that was 100% comfortable with networking. I would literally stay at the back of the room, find one or two people. But one thing I found was I was always very happy to talk about the work.
Got it.
Talk about myself, not so much. So I'd be talking about the problems with the work we're doing, the challenges we're facing, solutions. But when it came to talking about myself, then that's a problem. And I think there are lots of women and lots of medics as well, because the training is such that we're focused on the other and not on ourselves.
Yes.
So we do find it difficult as medical professionals to talk about ourselves. And why I'm talking about myself or ourselves is until you create that nexus between that work that you're passionate about and the role you as an individual play in creating value in that role, you're not going to be able to build that brand that people recognize as a solution provider, a change maker, an advocate, or a thought leader. So you have to create that balance. You have to find that nexus between both the work and yourself. It can't be just you talking about the work, because anybody else can talk about the work. But then what's that thing that you bring to the table? What's that contribution that you have to the work? And then that's what makes people recognize you and say, oh, okay, this is what she's doing and this is what he's bringing to the table. And then they recognize you as someone who they want to hear from or someone who can provide solutions.
This is so good. I'm literally taking notes. Like, I need to create a nexus. I love it. So I hope everybody got that. So talking about the problem, talking about the issues that are going on, talking about the work is not enough. You need to create that bridge where it's like, this is a problem, this is the solution, and this is how I help bring the solution. That is so good. Ugh, I took my notes. Okay. So practically, when you show up at an event, right? So let's say Aspen, for instance. So this was it in Denver, Colorado?
Yes, it was okay. Aspen in Colorado.
Aspen, yes. Aspen, Colorado. Okay.
At Adaeze Festival. Yeah.
Yeah. So you show up there. I'm guessing most of the people there, you don't know who they are, but these are all your people. You know what I mean? This is, global change, all this stuff. So when you showed up there, how did you connect? What did you do?
So, first of all, the Aspen platform is great. So already people know that every year they have Aspen New Voices, and people are pretty psyched to meet the new voices because somehow it's been built up as a brand of people who are working in really tough areas to make change. So you already have that message going on ahead of you. So I'll say I didn't have to do so much work, but then you have opportunities to talk to people who ordinarily you probably wouldn't. Yeah. And so you have to pick yourself. So you have to talk about the work you're doing and your unique place in finding solutions to those problems that you face in your role. And one thing that I found was very helpful was connecting with people with a personal story, as in when you show a human face to the work that you do. We're all human and we all connect on that level. So no matter how cynical, no matter how much of a hardliner someone is, that personal thing always clicks and resonates with the listener. So that's one key thing that I took away. Yeah.
Awesome. So use your stories and all that. Woo! Yeah. So good. I love it. Okay. So far, what has been your proudest moment as an entrepreneur?
There you are with the entrepreneur again.
You are an entrepreneur.
Okay. So last year, I think it was in September. In September, I was invited to speak on the importance of sexual and reproductive health and rights for women and girls in Nigeria and by extension in Africa at the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
Nice.
Yes, nice. There was a couple of sessions because there was a focus on universal health coverage last year. So there were a couple of sessions on that and I was invited to speak. And so I spoke alongside people from the United Nations and Women Deliver, which is this huge global campaign for women's rights across the world. So I had so many people in the audience, people from heads of government, from ministries of health, from international development agencies. And I had the opportunity to speak about people who are passionate about their healthcare. Yeah. People like 12-year-old mothers that I've seen in the course of my practice. And so lending a voice to those important issues about protecting the rights and health for women and girls. And as a follow-up of that meeting, I was then invited to the Africa Leadership meeting in Rwanda with heads of government of some African countries, Rwanda, Mozambique, Egypt, and ministers of health, ministers of finance, and heads of international agencies. So I think that was a pretty proud moment for me.
That is huge. That is so huge. Now, how did your name get to the United Nations piece? Do you know?
So as part of my advocacy, I've been writing on health issues and being published. My opinion pieces have been published. And so I've done so much more publishing of opinion pieces in the last year and been speaking at several events. So how exactly my name got to the person who invited me, I could never really tell. Yeah. But you see, that's the thing with putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because it's like this chain and you really don't know who's going to hear about you and who's going to have the opportunity to give you a platform to speak on the issues that you care about. So I can't really say.
Good. Yeah, that is so good. So the bottom line is, you have a brand, your brand has a voice, and your job is to project that voice out there, whether you're networking in person or whether, it's a blog or it's opinion pieces or it's a podcast or whatever it is. Because if you're not out there, then nobody can see you to give the opportunity.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, people are looking for you to give the opportunity. They just don't know where to find you.
Yeah. And so one thing I also think is a lot of people say, okay, I want to speak internationally, but you can't speak internationally until you've spoken locally.
Yes. So, say it again. The people in the back need to hear it.
A lot of people want to speak internationally, but you can't speak internationally until you've spoken locally. That's the thing. You have to speak in your local space. And then another added advantage of that is that it gives you, it's a comfort zone, more or less.
Yeah.
So you have the opportunity to speak and speak and speak, develop your confidence.
Yes.
And then, so when you're called to speak internationally, it's not like this big a deal because it's something you've been doing, something you've built your confidence and your competence in. So that's my advice to people. Wherever you are, if that's what you want to do, you want to write, you want to speak, do it in your home zone and just watch the message carry you wider.
Yes. Start from exactly where you are. I love it. Because that's practice, I'm sure when you went to the United Nations, you're not like, oh my gosh, there's a certain level of nervousness in the sense that I've never spoken at the United Nations, but it's not like, what if I don't know what to say? Of course you know what to say. You've said it 270 times.
Yeah, I remember before my session. So my session was later in the afternoon, early evening. And I attended so many other sessions before that. I was going into other people's sessions. And so I got a message from my sister, and she was like, oh, when's your session on? And I'm like, oh, it's about 5:30. And she's like, so where are you? Are you working on? And I'm like, no, I just came out from one other session, and that's why I can respond to your message. And she's like,
what are you doing?
Not. Yeah, but that's the thing. So because this is something that, one, you're passionate about, I can't overemphasize the fact that it's something that you're interested in, something that drives you, because you can't really learn passion.
Yeah.
So it has to be something that you're deeply, deeply committed to and interested in. And then it's something you've spoken about time and time again, and you have a clear message, you have evidence behind it, you have facts and figures. So your story is going to resonate, definitely.
I love it. That is so good. That's a really proud moment. I'm proud on your behalf. So let's talk a little bit about this balance thing. I know we've alluded to it a little bit, but so you have the husband, the kids, and you have the social life. You have all this travel, right? If you're doing a lot of international stuff, and then you have the job though, because you still have a job.
Yes, you still have a job.
So now one part is that you have the supportive family, but how do you balance where you feel, I don't want to travel the world and lose my family. I don't want to invest in my family and destroy my career. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, how do you balance it all so you feel like you're thriving in all those areas?
Yeah. So the thing is, I've had a meeting with myself, and so I know. So because I've come to accept myself, I've come to accept the things that drive me and my value. It's a work in progress, accepting my own value.
Okay.
And knowing that part of my value comes from a supportive network of my husband, my children, my family, my friends. So I know that that's also a very important part of my life and a part of my DNA.
Yeah.
So I don't accept everything. So even though I've spoken on all these platforms, in all these places, they are just a fraction of the places that I could be speaking at. So
Got it.
Sounds like it's huge, but I could still do so much more. But I've told myself that it's very important to me that I spend time with my family. I do the things that are important to my husband, to my children, my sisters, my brother, my family, my friends. So I don't lose myself in chasing after something that's always there. There's always going to be global health and development.
Yeah.
But there won't always be people if you deprioritize them in your life.
Yeah.
They won't always be there. So you have to also show them that you're passionate about them, you're committed to them as well. So I'm very, very unapologetic about the time that I craft to spend with my family and my friends. That is something that is non-negotiable for me. So
love it. Love it. So we need to be clear on what our priorities are, and we need to build boundaries around our priorities. So this is a time for my family, and I'm glad you have this opportunity, but it doesn't work for me. I love it.
Yes.
We need to become masters at saying no. Like, this is a really good word. It's a key to success, which makes me feel honored that you said yes to be on this podcast, just so you know. I could have been in the no bucket, you know? But that ability to say no, you don't have to take every opportunity, because this part of your life is not the only part of your life. I love it. Oh, exactly. So good.
So like a couple of, I think it was a week ago or so, I was invited on for a media interview. And unfortunately, I couldn't take it because I had other family commitments. And so I nominated someone else who they could reach out to. So that's another thing. In networking, sometimes people tend to see it as how to get. But networking is also about what you give.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
You get as good as you give. So it's also about how much value you bring to other people. So a mentor works very well with giving you advice and all that, but the mentor also wants you to be that person who, when they need some help with something, if you're in a position to assist, then you also would, so that it's not just about them giving, and you taking without giving anything in return. So it's kind of like a value exchange.
Yeah. Tit for tat. Pat my back, I'll pat yours. Don't be a parasite. Give and take. That is so good. And we could do a whole thing on mentoring, and I'm just going to walk away from it because that will take us to another 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a whole other thing. Okay, I won't even touch it.
And you don't want to get me on the mentoring soapbox, because that's, no.
No, so let me just put that out there. I value the fact that you're really good at saying no. And so I'm just going to lobby in front of everybody here and say, we need to do another one sometime in the future where we talk about mentorship, because this is huge, though. Sometimes I believe it's not a relationship that's really understood how to get the best out of it, especially when you're the mentee. So, put that in your yes bucket and we'll work on that. How about that?
Okay, with the audience listening in.
Okay, see, now you have all these people to hold you accountable. I love it. So now I hope, my listeners have gotten the fact that, I talk about being an entrepreneur, which would be someone who has a job, but is very clear that they're a brand and they build that brand, right? So your success and all the things you're accomplishing, the results you're getting, they don't all just come because you're working a job. They come because you've built a brand, right? So for someone who wants to build their own professional brand, maybe they didn't even know about this. Maybe they just thought, my job is do my 9 to 5 and, that's who I am. But they've had these passions that they can build out, that they can monetize, all this stuff that they can do. What advice would you give them now that they've discovered they can do this?
Okay, so my advice would be, one, to be confident in yourself, in what you bring to the table, be clear, and be consistent about the value that you can add. So confidence, clarity, consistency on your value, and communication on that value, because you want to be able to communicate the value you bring to people who can speak for you in rooms where you aren't, people who can open up doors of opportunity for you to expand and expose your brand, and be ready to network strategically within your sphere, put your radar open to opportunities for networking, both in your career space and even in like professional associations. And I see you, Dr. Una, you do a lot of that as well. I see that. And you're actually really clear on your communication. So those are the things, because sometimes when you're pitching, you just have a really, really small window to communicate the value and why somebody should take notice of what you're doing or give you an opportunity. So that's where clarity, consistency, and confidence comes in, because you have to sharply communicate that value and network in spaces where the people who are relevant to your career growth, your personal, professional growth are present. So your radar has to be open for that, for opportunities that present themselves.
Wow. Okay. I hope everybody gets how big this is. And I never realized how important clarity was. But the truth of the matter is, if you have so many messages, then nobody can do anything with you because they don't know what you do, right? So you're saying a lot of stuff, but people are like, okay, I don't know what that is. And sometimes we feel we have to say new things. You know what I mean? Like, I have to say new things. No, you need to say the old thing, but to new people.
Yeah.
So what you said is just really so powerful. I love it. So you have to be confident. You have to be clear. You have to be consistent with your clarity. And then you have to network. That is so good. So good. Well, hey, dogs. I trust that you are enjoying this wonderful interview with Dr. Adaeze Oreh. Really impressive story. I wanted to take a moment to point something out. Now, she talked about confidence, clarity about the value you offer, consistently communicating that value, and strategic networking. These are some of the most powerful things you can do to build your brand. And we are going to be working through every one of these things during EntreMD Live. EntreMD Live is where all the people you hear about on this podcast, the people who listen to this podcast, the people who are entrepreneurs, the people who want to build brands, want to build big businesses, all come together in one space. It is like the most strategic networking that you can do. The content is unbelievable because we work through clarifying your message. We work through elevating your platform so you can communicate consistently. We work through how to market and put yourself out there and promote your brand professionally so you don't have to feel sleazy like a car salesman. So listen, you have to be in Atlanta, June the 13th, 2020. Take the time off, get your tickets, go to EntreMD.com, get your tickets, reserve your spot, get a fellow doc to come with you. And this is going to be that event where you either build out your brand or you take your brand to the next level, and you would find yourselves in places you cannot believe. What she did took her to the Aspen Institute, took her to Harvard, took her to United Nations and so many other places. If you learn what she knows, if you learn to clarify your message and communicate it consistently and to do this confidently, where will it take you? Okay, so I don't want you to miss out on it. June the 13th, 2020 in Atlanta, Georgia. Go to EntreMD.com, get your tickets, and I'll see you there. Okay.
Yeah, another thing as well is when you have successes, document them, because they're also good in you assessing yourself.
Yes.
So when you have a milestone that you've achieved, putting it down and going back and saying, oh my, wow, this is something I achieved.
Yes.
Right? It helps you, it motivates you, and at the same time, it exposes you to people who are like, oh wow, this is what Dr. Una is doing. Let's give her the opportunity to talk more about this, which opens more doors of opportunities for you and further grows your personal brand.
Love it.
So documenting and sharing.
Documenting and sharing your successes. Yes. Love.
Yeah.
Love. Okay. So this is, I mean, you can make a whole conference out of this, right? From these 5 points. This is
and that tip on documenting and sharing, there's this career coach in Nigeria. So she's big on this. She talks about it as well. Documenting and sharing. And she does great in documenting and sharing her successes. Gloria Adaeze, that's her name. So you're kind of like in the same park.
We are in the same park. But I think especially for physicians, because we're type A people, for most physicians are to an extent. And then what that does is we always have a goal in front of us. There's always something we're chasing down. And when we don't stop to celebrate, to us, we're like, we've not accomplished anything because there's that next goal that's already there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm like, okay, so stop and look at what has happened. Oh my God, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to celebrate your wins. You have to celebrate it. All right, this is.
And unfortunately, I've had to learn that the same way, because right in the middle of my residency, I won an award in New Delhi, in India. And it was a huge award, but I didn't really celebrate it because I wasn't done with my residency. And to me, that was like the finish line. That was the target. That was the end game. And everything else was, oh yeah, that's great. Thank you. But I still had that thing. So I know I could have celebrated that win more, but I couldn't see that because I had
there's another goal.
The residency yet.
Yeah.
Still ahead of me
But I saw that though. I think you posted it on LinkedIn or somewhere. I did see it. I was like, what's she doing on the stage in India?
I posted. Yeah, no, it was when I spoke. I posted because I met this amazing woman who's in technology and we were co-speakers. So pretty much that's why I posted that.
That's bragging rights. I love it. It's bragging rights. So what's your next big goal? Because it's not residency anymore. You've been done with that. And you've done United Nations and all this stuff. So what's in the future? What are you looking at?
Well, I'm open to so many great things in the future. But one thing I know is that big goals start from small steps. So tomorrow I'll be facilitating a session on ending maternal deaths. And it's being hosted by Harvard University.
Well, all right.
So I'll be facilitating health experts on talking about risk factors and solutions as a pathway to ending maternal deaths. So that's where I'm at. And fingers crossed that will go great. Yeah.
I got all my fingers crossed. It will go great.
I'd like to.
Congratulations on all your success. I'm glad we got to catch up in this kind of way because, a lot of this is like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot. This is really, really good. We're over here rooting for you and I'm super proud of everything you've done. And obviously, this is just the beginning. And thank you so much for coming on here. How can people find you, follow you, stay in touch with what you do, read your pieces and stuff like that, and watch you as you celebrate and document your successes?
So I'm on Twitter as Adaeze Oreh and also on LinkedIn, Adaeze Oreh. So you can follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And I always drop my op-eds, my articles whenever they're published on either of these platforms.
Okay, great. So I'm going to post the links to those in the show notes as well. So, and for your foundation as well. And thank you so much for coming on. So everybody can look out for part 2. If you love this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, share, and review it on iTunes. As you go about your week, remember, you're not just an MD, you're an EntreMD. Don't forget to tune in next week for another great episode. Until next time.